Swine flu with swinish thinking. Lying, lying, lying every day of the week. Lying, saying that it's too late to close the barn door and coming up with a ludicrous analogy that doesn't have any logic to it whatsoever. Listen to clip 2. Borders and closing the barn door.
At this point, they have not recommended a border closing.
All persons entering the United States will be processed passively.
Closing the barn door after the horses are out.
That's like locking your door after the burglar has already come in.
I mean, Mexico is the thing the U.S. always kicks around.
Closing the borders isn't a day late and a dollar short.
This is not about immigration.
Relax.
Passive surveillance protocols. Closing our nation's borders is not merited here.
Locking your door after the burglar.
Closing the barn door after
a day late and a dollar short.
And I screwed up because we already have cases here in the United States.
Cases? So what about the other cases in Mexico? Does that make sense to you? Here's the genius, the pharaoh of our time, Barack Obama. Big law professor. Oh, the Harvard Law Review. Like, that's the be-all and end-all of genius. A product he hasn't created. A service he hasn't created. But the Harvard Law Review, like, that's the standard of the world. That you jockey yourself into the law review. Oh, you're a genius. So the man says that's like closing the barn door after the horses have gotten out. Hey, genius, there are additional ill horses on the other side of the border. Shall we let them stampede across into our emergency rooms? You know you're lying. I know for a fact you're lying because hospitals have sent notices out to the doctors here in California, and I won't disclose who told me this, telling doctors to stay away from hospitals unless it's an emergency, unless they have an emergency care patient. They are not to come to the hospital because they know the disease is spreading, and it's spreading because the illegals are coming into this state and demanding free treatment because the moron gringo gives them free treatment. They could cough in the doctor's face. The doctor can't refuse treatment. Don't you understand this? This is absurd. It's absurd. I've never seen anything like this. I know more about disease transmission than Janet Napolitano and Obama put together. And don't tell me they're talking to their epidemiologists. There are no epidemiologists at the CDC. There are little politicians with epidemiology degrees who have been politically caponized. They've been taught what to think from the time they went to school, or else they wouldn't have gotten their degree and they wouldn't have gotten into the government. The CDC does not hire anyone unless they're a psychological capon or a gelding, whichever way you want to put it. There is not a doctor in the CDC who is not a gelding. Or they wouldn't be working in the government and the CDC. They would have been screened out 20 years ago. So they're going to say, oh, the epidemiologists. If you've actually studied epidemiology, as I had to do to get my PhD, one of the first thing you learn is the transmission of disease. And the first thing you do is you find the source of the disease and you close it down. That's the first rule of epidemiology. You close it down. You don't say, well, the barn is closed, the door, the barn, the horse, the snow, whatever. What kind of stupidity is this? Is this nation that idiotic that they can't understand your logic when they hear it? Am I the only one who hears this? Does this make sense to you? Are you that idiotic? Am I the last man on earth who has the capacity for inductive and deductive reasoning and logic? Or has this gone out the door? You mean what the Pharaoh says is true? Because the Pharaoh says it is true, so be it. All hail Caesar. Well, if I'm the last man who can think in the media, so be it. So be it. Don't close the barn door. And the biggest schmuck in the media is Schlepp Smith. This guy is a moron of the lowest order. So the pretty face, they love him. The girls love him. The stay-at-home moms, I guess. The stay-at-home moms, Schlepp Smith, a putz like I never saw. Says, oh, boy, that's like closing the door after the burglars come in. What if there's 10,000 more burglars outside the door, moron? You don't do anything about it? You leave the door open for them? What is this? How do these people get jobs? How is it possible? How is this possible? Fiat, we're hearing, is going to save Chrysler. Fiat's known for its engineering. Oh, I've been dying to buy a Fiat for years. I can't get them. They're so valuable, you can't find them. That's the company that the Chrysler is going to be saved by Chrysler because they're superior engineering. Fiat's going to save Chrysler. Why? The Chrysler 300 Hemi engine is no good, but the Fiat engine, oh, man, it's the standard of the world. Fix it again, Tony. I'll be back.